Do you know these guys? Of course you know them. 1,000,000%. Squid Game had a big hype in September this year, and there are lots of memes about it. But my speech isn't about Squid Game itself. It's about these guys. They're just like soldiers that are doing their work, but when you're asking a question, why were they doing it? The answer to this question I want to tell you today, and I want to tell a story about Milgram's experiment that shows how the system works even now, in our days. Okay, so this is Stanley Milgram. He is a Jew, like many Americans in that time. And this is Adolf Eichmann. He was facilitating and managing the logistics involved in the mass deportation of the Jews to the extermination camps. Roughly speaking, he was the person who signed the death sentence to all the Jews who were in the extermination camps. And he, like many of the Germans, fled to Argentina, where he had a wife and a son. But through the time, his son fell in love with a neighbor's girl, who was a Jew. And he told her all the secrets of his father and what he was doing in his past. Adolf Eichmann was arrested and sent to Israel. But on the trial, where Stanley Milgram was, Adolf Eichmann didn't look like a person who did all of this. He was like a normal person. And Stanley asked himself, why? And to find out the answer to this question, he started a series of experiments called Milgram's experiments. In the experiments, 3 people participated. 2 of them were test subjects. The first was the manager, the guy on the right. The second was taken to another room. The manager had the boss, the guy on the left. The third participant who was telling what to do and was giving the orders. The manager was asking different questions to the person in another room. If he answers incorrectly, he gets electrocuted. And every wrong answer means higher power of electric shock. But there is one problem. The real test subject is the manager. The guy in another room is an actor. He acted like he was in pain, and one moment he didn't even give any life signs. And the manager didn't know the situation, and the experiment continued. And what is the goal of the experiment? To see how the influence of the boss works on the manager. The manager is a sword and the boss is an order, and the results were shocking. To the max point of electric shock of 450 volts came 65% of all the participants. It means that 65% of all the participants do actions under the influence of the boss. During the experiment, different participants were protesting, were very nervous, and were constantly asking the manager, the boss, to stop it. But he was saying that it's okay and we can continue the experiment, and the experiment continued. 65%. Why do 65% of all the participants do this, ignoring that they were doing wrong? Like Germans in the Third Reich were killing Jews, like young soldiers in Squid Game were killing the participants of the game. Why? Because these people said, it's not our problem, all still under the responsibility of another person, or it's not my fault. Oh my, or it's not my fault. Germans, at the trial, Adolf Eichmann said, that he was still that he was just executing orders, but he still was executed. Germans at the Nuremberg trial were saying that they didn't have any choice, but they were executed. This experiment shows how the hierarchy builds itself. We have the boss, who control the manager, who control other guys, and so on and on. From this influence, we can get the first hypothesis, which I have described a bit before. It's when the manager shifts responsibility at another people, for example, at the boss or at the actor. At this time, moral values are suppressed, and we get a person who, at this situation, do actions based on other people's feelings and ideas. Or the manager just doing his job, and the boss achieves his ideas using the manager. In this way, the hierarchy builds, without which it would be impossible the evolution of humankind itself. All our life, we were taught that we must obey. At first, our parents, then school, then work. Everywhere, subordination is encouraged, and insubordination isn't encouraged. Everywhere, we must obey the authority. But at first, we must recognize this authority. Like it was in the Third Reich, Hitler had an idea, and using his skills, he brought the idea to all the Germans. He just had the solution to the crisis of the Germany at that time. And he got the trust of the Germans, and he brought the idea of killing Jews to all the Germans. Most of the generals of the Third Reich were veterans of the First World War. And army is the best way to get the subordination. From this influence, we can get the second hypothesis. The fewer people see the consequences of their actions, the more they obey. Some soldiers in Squid Game, some soldiers were given the orders to kill people. Like officers in the Third Reich were given orders to kill Jews, like Adolf Eichmann was given the orders. But these people didn't kill people by themselves. And because of this, they were more subject to the system. So, people who are higher in the hierarchy are more subject to the system. Soldiers were managers, and because of this, they were doing all of this. Also, there were Milgram's experiment where there were several managers. In this way, the meaning of conformism plays one of the main roles. It's when the managers, as themselves, are building the system. From this influence, we can get the third hypothesis. More people are doing the same work, the more people will join them too. The experiment showed that 90% of all the participants follow the idea of the majority. People always want to be the part of the society. Unfortunately, nowadays, more and more people are using these three hypotheses, and more people are becoming the managers. For example, in 2020, one person brought the idea to people, and because of this, New York Stock Exchange incurred losses for $70 billion. And this person became a millionaire just because he knew how to rule people. And we should know where and how we are becoming the managers. We also should know where it's good to be the manager or not, how to be the boss, and understand these focuses of psychology. Remember, you're responsible for anything you have done and you are doing now. We live not in a happy world. Every person wants to be the boss. And you should have your own ideas. You shouldn't live by the idea of another person. Remember, we always have a choice. A Jew musician, Władysław Szpilman, once told a story about how a German soldier saved him during the Second World War. And German soldier, whose name was Wilhelm Rosenfeld, said, "I'm sorry for my people, and I am ashamed of my people." And this soldier was bringing the food to Władysław. We always have a choice of what we are doing. You shouldn't be the managers or slaves of system, because it's your idea, your dream, your life, and your future. Thank you.